Well, I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. The Chamber is proud to have representatives here today from Workforce Solutions for North Central Texas and the SBA as a resource for you. I'd like to introduce one of our board members who's with us today, the owner of our local MACO, Mr. Shane Hollas, and he can introduce our speakers for us today. Shane?
Yeah, thank you for everybody for joining today and getting on the call. We have two fine guests with us here. Our first guest is David Setzler, and David serves as the Executive Director for Workforce Solutions for North Central Texas, where he leads initiatives to provide locally designed, market-driven workforce development services for employers, community partners, and job seekers. And they do that over 14 counties. Prior to that, he was 30 years, there's a host of things, but 30 years with SBC and retiring in 2001. So we really appreciate, David, for you being here. Thanks for joining us. And as we were talking before the call, you might be the best kept secret that people don't know about. So, and I imagine there's a lot of people on our call today that may be unfamiliar with your organization. So could we start by telling us a little bit about what Workforce Solutions does and how you help both job seekers and employers?
Sure, Shane, and thank you to the Rockwall Chamber for making this venue available. I really do think sometimes we are the best kept secret in town. And so what my organization does is it's one of 28 local workforce development boards across the state. So you heard Shane say that I cover 14 counties. Well, those are the 14 counties that surround Dallas and Tarrant. Dallas has a workforce board. Tarrant County has a workforce board, and so they call me the donut man for a lot of reasons. And so we administer federal grants, and of course they go through the Texas Workforce Commission. But our area, we tailor how we deliver our service to the needs of our entities, like chambers of commerce and economic development organizations. And so our board of directors is made up of it's primarily business people. We have to be at least 51% all business at all the time. Our county judges primarily are what we call our chief elected officials. So Judge Sweet appoints people to our workforce board. So they make policy decisions on what we do with this grant money. And this year we've got in the neighborhood of $80 million. A lot of that is for child care. We also oversee the delivery of subsidized child care in that same area, and we support about a little over 7,000 children a day. Of course, not right now, but everybody's sheltering in place. And then on the workforce side, we work with both employers and job seekers. We're primarily focused on the employers meeting their needs, but by necessity, we have to work with people that are maybe in a place in their career where they want to advance, they want to upskill and get that next better job. Or maybe they recently experienced a layoff, which we're seeing historic levels of that right now. And so although this is temporary and we really think this is going to unwind and most people are going to go back, but there'll be some residual fallout from this. And so we'll work with those people to help them skill up, get a certificate or some type of certification that will put them back in the workforce. So that's generally what we do. And we have 11 centers across our 14 county area. Did you want me to go a little deeper, Shane? If you're talking, you're muted.
Yes, I do, but I was muted by someone on the call and it did not give me access to unmute myself. So yeah, I think in these times you have both job seekers and employers, and we're trying to figure out what to do. So what kind of guide, and I think everybody is really looking for guidance and coaching on how to navigate things like this, because a lot of us, we've never been through it. So what kind of information, coaching, and guidance can you provide to us that can help us do better?
Okay, we have a lot, and let me give you this. Our website is www.dfwjobs.com, dfwjobs.com, and we have a COVID landing page there, which goes into a lot of this in detail. But just at a high level, On the job seeker side, of course, you've heard about the unprecedented level of unemployment insurance claims, and that's all done at the state level, but we're here locally to support you. And although our centers are closed and we're working from home, we can provide all the same services that we would provide if you came into one of our centers. And I think the closest ones to Rockwall are either the one in South Plano right there off of Jupiter, north of the George Bush, or Greenville sometimes is closer for some folks. So we encourage, no matter what the problem is, for you to call us. Our numbers go to a voicemail, but that voicemail creates an email that goes to our staff, and our commitment is to get back to you within 24 hours to answer your question. And many times we can solve some of these simpler problems for the UI claimants, but a lot of it has to go to the state. And so one of the things we've done on the employer side is we're working with them. We've identified some employers that are still hiring during this time. And we're trying to match up job seekers that maybe want to go to work and maybe change during this time, to know where the jobs are, who's hiring, what the qualifications are. And so we're kind of a conduit for that in this particular time. There's a lot of stuff behind the curtain, that we do with job seekers. We're interviewing them. We're doing some assessment of them. We're seeing what their skill set is, what they need, and then we're trying to get them ready to fulfill the needs of a local employer that's hiring. But even coming back, as when we had the recession back in 2008, 2009. We were in much the same mode, although it wasn't at the level. It was a different type of event than this one. But we typically get extra funds from the federal government during these times to assist workers, and we have this time too. So I encourage, if you're a job seeker, that you call the center and get hold of somebody and start the process of enrolling in our programs, and let us work with you to try to help you find something, if not permanent, something temporary, because a lot of these employers are hiring temporary jobs to get through this. And the employer side is the same way, although we work a little differently. The monster.com of Texas is called Work in Texas. It is a job matching platform. It's brand new. We just refreshed it and used a new commercial product. And so employers can call us and post their jobs in workintexas.com for free, and we will help them with the possible candidate list that they can pull out of there to make sure that the list is a good list. Sometimes you get people will apply for a job that they're not really qualified for. We can filter those lists for our employers. And even if an employer is thinking about a temporary layoff, we have some layoff aversion tools that we can use, and we can help you maybe think about how you get through this in a little different way. But you've got to reach out to us and let us know you need that help. We have business services consultants in our centers. I also have business development liaisons that report up through my board structure to me, that are out there to help our businesses get done what they need to get done. We just need to know what it is you need us to help with.
And on that line, you started giving a couple, but can you give some more examples of how does a job seeker use you? Like, give some specific examples to put parameters in folks' mind, and then maybe give an example of the employer side.
Okay, so on the job seeker side, often in a time like this, people will be affected that have never been laid off in their life. I mean, they've had good, comfortable jobs. They're good middle-class wages, and they're just not prepared for something like this. So we can help with helping them understand what they need to do to be more effective in the job search arena. And like, what's your resume look like? How long has it been since you refreshed it? Have you done anything recently that's not on your resume? So documenting what they've been doing and their value that they can bring to an employer is one of the main things. Some of our longer term things that we do for people is to put them in some type of training. It could be a certification program. We've put people through college, so it really depends on the person, the situation, what it is they need to become, desirable in the job market. Employers, it's kind of the same way. We need to know what they're looking for in terms of employees. But let me give you an example of how we coordinate and kind of convene people. So we had a layoff notice that came in. This was over around Alliance Airport, and it was Cabela's when they closed their store, and they had 35 people they were going to lay off. Well, we happened to have another business that was growing out there. Stanley Black & Decker was growing their facility. We tied those two people together and kind of facilitated getting them together, and they ended up hiring 32 or like the 35 that were going to get laid off. So that's an example of us convening resources to mitigate the impact of something like a layoff. There's other layoff mitigation strategies like work share that we can share with people. And then when these employers start coming back, and maybe some of their workforce has moved on, and we want to be there to help them attract the type of talent that they're looking for and to get them there.
Yeah. Do you also help, let's say somebody, this is the first time, or let's say they're at a point in their career where they want to look at something new. Do you also have services that will help them sort of define what a next step might be that is different than their current path that they're on, basically to explore, help self-inspection and self-awareness on what do you really want to do? Where do you want to go? Is this is this current career you've spent 15 years in, is that really what you want to be doing? Do you have services to help them kind of brainstorm and find if maybe a different path is best for them?
Yes, we do. One of the first things we do when somebody comes in that is unfamiliar with our system is we do what's called a workforce orientation. And that's an orientation to our services and everything that we do. There are certain things that we are able to deliver that are available to everybody that comes in our workforce center. And believe it or not, there's still people today that don't have a computer at home. So we have a resource room with computers, fax machines, telephones, all that kind of stuff that they can use. And so orientation to our services is very important. One of the things the Workforce Board approves and sets is something we call the targeted occupations list. And so that is a list that is derived based on both economic and labor market information plus local wisdom about what jobs, what are the jobs that are going to be fillable going forward. We don't want somebody, of course, we're always encouraged, if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur and start their own business, there's resources for that, educationally wise, but we want people to know where the good jobs are, where the careers are going to be, and where the sustainable jobs are, so we can train them in those areas. So it's a matter of convening both sides of this equation and getting the needs of the employer defined, and then making sure that the staff have all the resources they need to get qualified to have these great jobs. So we've got there's probably about 35 jobs on this targeted occupations list, but we can actually, we actually can train somebody. Say a CPA is on the list. Well, you don't start out as a CPA, you start as an accountant somewhere. And so you move up through that. And so we will help guide somebody's path from maybe ground zero up to being a CPA. So that's the kind of stuff we do.
Well, sounds like a lot of good information and good resource for, like I said, with the job seeker and the employer. I appreciate the information, and I think let's turn over to Bridget. But before we do that, is there any last action item that you want to give the audience?
Yes, right now in our child care program, we are focusing very heavily on service to frontline providers first responders, all essential workers, people that are having to work to support the public good, public welfare. Go to our website and learn about those services. We can provide childcare at no cost to them so that they can keep working and perform those services that we need on the front line.
And what's the website again for everybody?
It's www.dfwjobs.com.
All right. Well, we appreciate it, David. Thank you. So we'll turn it over to Bridget, and Bridget Moon currently serves as the Economic Development Specialist and Veteran Business Development Officer for the U.S. Small Business Administration, the SBA, and her office serves 72 counties in North Texas. So thank you for joining us, Bridget, and I know there's lots of questions for you, and you've been on many of these, so why not just turn it over to you and hit all the high points?
Okay, not a problem. Thank you so much for having us. And yes, we get a lot of questions daily, and I will kind of hit some high points of some of those questions that I'm getting and our office is getting. A lot of people are aware of our two main programs that we have out there, and obviously the one that's been out there a lot is our payroll protection program, and that is administered through financial institutions, mostly by banks or other institutions that do SBA lending. However, because of the COVID-19, we have immediately vetted over 600 additional financial institutions to handle the load with the payroll protection program. What I do want to note on these programs, as a lot of people are aware, and it's been in the news, that funding has been halted at this time with the hopes this week these programs will have appropriations again for funding. So a lot of times people, when they're going through the payroll protection program, they think SBA has a lot of the answers of their status on that particular program, and we do not. They need to contact the bank that they've applied through to find out status. And I know quite a few of them are getting emails that saying not to contact. The key is that those emails kind of will give you an indication of what the status is. Sometimes people get the letter that states they received all their information, but that doesn't mean that file has been processed. We had a person that applied and they got an email that says they received all information and has been processed and waiting for funding. So that's kind of, when you get these emails, it'll kind of give you a little bit of status on that payroll protection program. Now, for those that have not applied for payroll protection program, they can still apply once that funding comes available. Banks right now are not taking any additional applications at this time. If they need to contact a bank that hopefully they bank with, that would already be administering the payroll protection program. If they have not found a bank, or their bank maybe does not do the payroll protection program, they can contact us. We do have a small list of lenders out there that are doing outside of their customer base. We do have quite a few that are saying, look, my bank doesn't do them, or I have to have, certain kind of financing through them, or they have to have a business account, and we understand that that might not fit the bill for all. So we do have options out there. They just say, let us know, and we can shoot those other lenders out to them. Now, going into the EIDL, now people that have applied, there is money. We've gotten just new numbers on the EIDL advance, which is the grant funds that people can get an additional up to $10,000. We've processed 63,815 of those just in Texas, to give you an idea where that is. And that's over $287 million just for the state of Texas. Now, the loan program, because it's bigger dollars, we're at 1,243 that have been approved at this time, with over 263 million. So they're going to, continue to process those, and when the funding comes through, get that funding option. Now, if they need assistance of On the EIDL, we do have a couple 800 numbers. For those that just have general questions and they haven't applied for the EIDL, they need to go ahead and they can call 1-800-659-2955. For those that have already applied and want to know status, they can contact 877-641-8202. For those that have applied, you are going to be giving, at the end of your application, you were given a file number. They'll be requesting that file number to find out your status. So you need to make sure you have that. For those that might just need additional information, if you go to sba.gov/coronavirus, it will have a link up there at the very top. It's in yellow, says, actually, I'll read it to you: coronavirus, COVID-19 relief options, and additional resources. Click here. If you go and click on there, they'll come up with some various content that you can select from. If you go to coronavirus funding options, that's where you might want to take a look at the different programs. It does talk about the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. It does talk about the EIDL, the quick advanced EIDL funds. You can also go to our district page, which is sba.gov/tx/Dallas, to get information on our resource guide, which is in a PDF form underneath our address. And in there, under the funding section, is in our 72 counties, SBA lenders. So if there's a question, they need to get contact information. Also in that resource guide is our national resource partners. For those that might need help putting an application together for the EIDL loan portion, they are staffed and ready and know our program to where they can offer free assistance. And that includes SCORE in our small business development centers, our women's business center. And if you're a veteran or have a association in the military community, a spouse, you can utilize our Veteran Business Outreach Center, which is also located at the UTA in Arlington. So there's quite a bit of different resources to help, kind of go through all the mass information out there. Also, our office is Twittering. If you go to at SBA DFW, they're constantly giving update links through that for those that want just to click on stuff and get right to the information. So we highly suggest connecting to our Twitter account. If those that want to, there's also another resource besides our resource guide to get our lenders. If you go to sba.gov/paycheck protection, that where you're going to enter a zip code. And on that zip code, it will list all your lenders available in the area that are doing the payroll protection program. That is being updated constantly. So although you might see one thing the next day, it could be different the next day. They're constantly vetting to try to handle the workload off some of the bigger banks. And that'll, of course, be really relevant as the program opens up with additional funding, hopefully this week. I didn't know if there's any other additional questions that might be in there before I go into the other two. Is there anything else that?
No, I would say do the other two.
Okay, all right. So
I think that's going to be a lot new for people.
Right. Okay. So those that have let's say that maybe you already have an SBA loan. There's another program called SBA Debt Relief. If you have a current 7A or 504 or microloan, and actually approved and funded actually through September 27 of 2020, SBA is paying 6 months of your principal, interest, and any fees. Okay. Now, if you're on automatic payment plan, you need to get yourself off that automatic payment plan and contact your servicing office to get that 6 months. Okay. Then in addition, for those that maybe have had a disaster loan prior, such as from flooding or a tornado. Again, it has to be in a regular servicing office up till March of this 2020. Automatic deferments for payment through the end of the year, through 12/31/2020. Interest will still accrue though, so they need to be aware of that'll be an automatic deferment for them. But again, if they're on a payroll, or not payroll, but on an automatic payment plan, they need to get off that payment plan and let that servicing office know that they're off that payment plan so they can get that loan in that deferment status. If they don't want it and they're in that automatic payment plan, that's fine. It'll stay as is. Okay. The other fourth program that I'll talk about real quick is the SBA Express Bridge Loan. For those businesses that have a current relationship with an SBA Express lender, they can look at doing an immediate $25,000 bridge loan. And what I mean by immediate, it's not like instantaneously. It's a shorter amount of forms and paperwork, with the hopes of the EIDL loan coming into play to pay that off. But the $25,000 is just like it says, a bridge loan to get you through until your EIDL loan is approved.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, those are two other good options. I have a question. I heard, and this is more maybe clarifying hearsay.
Sure.
So one of them that I heard was that the interest rate, so right now EIDL, and EIDL for everybody is EIDL. It's Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Is that
That's
correct?
That is correct.
And those are more, so PPP is based on payroll, and there's stipulations for what you can use it for. Example, you have to use 75% for payroll cost. On the PPP, do you also have to maintain 75% of your head count, or is it just 75% of your payroll cost?
To my understanding, the way that is that that's to get your your current payroll. So if you had anybody that was laid off to bring them back on, so it's 75% of your payroll cost. If I would contact a lender that they're going to go through for further clarification on the real specifics on that.
Okay.
Things have changed as that program rolled out. And so you're absolutely right, though, is it's 75% for payroll and 25% is it's kind of some certain mortgage interest, utilities, and rent. So they want to get with that lender to make sure their calculations are correct, as well as what documentation is going to be required to make those amounts to be forgiven all said and done. Because we want to make sure these small business owners are making sure they got proper documentation. So that's very important.
Okay. Yeah, and as I've talked to banks and helped other businesses try to figure this out, there's a lot left to be known. There's a lot up in the air still. The banks don't know. So I think the guidance there is continue to work with the bank, that if you are doing PPP, continue to work with them. The EIDL is more of a traditional loan. And what I'm familiar with right now is that it's a PPP is capped at 10 million, up to 10 million, stipulations how you have to use it. And then EIDL is capped at 2 million, but not really any stipulations on how you have to use it. You can use it for rent, payroll, etc.
Well, okay, so let me go back on the PPP. That's absolutely right as far as it's more designated as far as use of funds. Just to give you a little more specifics, the current deadline is June 30th. It's a 2-year loan program with a 1% rate with a 6-month deferment before first payment. So and you're absolutely right on the 10 million. Now going to the EIDL, yes, it's set up a little different. You got a deferment of first payment 1 year, goes up to 2 million with a possible term of 30 years. And the current interest rate for businesses is 3.75%. Nonprofits is 2.75. Now the allocation of what we call use of proceeds is going to be based on the communication that small business owner has with their loan officer. And what I mean by that is they're not going to just say, here's 50,000, use as will. It's going to be say, okay, what are your needs? Are you needing for rent? Let's analyze what, are you totally shut down? Do you have any money coming in? What's your assistance that you need for, keeping your payroll? Rent, your fixed expenses, maybe inventory. Maybe that business had to sell the inventory and just to keep, alive while their business is, shut down, and they sold off inventory to pay some bills, but now they don't have the working capital to replace that inventory. So we can look at inventory needs. We can look at, again, just general working capital. Especially on a seasonal business, that could be definitely something that needs to be looked at to keep that business going through any part of their season. So it will be allocated as far as use of proceeds, but it'll be a discussion with that small business owner to see what that need is.
Yeah, it seems like on the PPP, it's work with your bank directly. It's pretty straightforward. There's a calculators that most banks have to be able to get you the amount you qualify for. On the EIDL, it is a lot more up in the air, and it seems like you're going to get your designated loan, I don't know the title, your designated loan officer, if you will, but they work for the SBA, and then you collectively will determine how much do you need, where's it going to be used.
Correct. They're going to have that discussion. Now, of course, with the application that they filled out for those immediate grant funds of $10,000, there will be some additional documentation to get the loan. So when the loan officer contacts them, they might have to submit some additional documentation to go over, okay, here's what you had last year. Were you expecting any kind of growth for this year? Let's look at what your needs are from last year to this year during this time. So people that have a small business, they just need to be aware that there is going to be some additional documentation that will be required for the loan portion. But there's just an in-depth conversation with that small business owner to go over their needs.
And I've heard that the up to 10,000 grant can come and you basically will just see a deposit in your account. But for the other portion of it, you're supposed to receive a phone call and an email to the email address you provided in your application. Is that correct?
Yes, they will get an email. Again, they're supposed to be getting emails in referencing to the grant funds that they received and the process to go forth if they want to pursue the loan portion, or maybe they've already gotten loan proceeds and they want to request an increase.
Okay. Well, we're a little bit over time. I appreciate everybody that joined us today, and for those that are going to be listening to this in the future, thank you very much to David and Bridget. We appreciate your information as well as guidance. Two great programs, or two great companies offering lots of programs for employers and job seekers. If anybody listening has any questions, etc., please reach out to the Chamber office. They can help guide you. And thank you again for joining the call, and everybody have a great day.